many of whom are no longer with us, but they're on the other planes. And I know the truly, truly wise ones exist in all the boxes. But there are these kind of middlemen, like the accountants that have taken over universities, and they block prophetic genius from arising in each of these traditions. And that's the Mao's, Mao personally killed off loads of the greatest Chinese communist intellectuals, as Stalin did with the Russians. Anyone with any intelligence was killed off by these sort of fanatical middlemen. And then the mediocre people rise to the top and block anyone else rising to the top. That's what we've got in the House Commons. We've got a logjam of mediocre MPs without vision, without statesmanship, without conscience, without ethics. They've hijacked the Tory party and now trying to use it as a vehicle to impose collective ignorance on my nation, the United Kingdom, with the collusion of a queen who is herself having a sort of collective ignorance attack, and all her, cronies. Well, I'm saying enough is enough. We demand the right to intelligence, and the Scots are some of the most intelligent people I've ever met. I love them. They're my best friends. They will break away from that. They're not going to be kept in a, artificially dumbed down state as a sort of little petty place where you can park your nuclear weapons and dump your nuclear waste. No, thank you very much. And the Scots are part of the onward, elevation of humanity, and that's called the Scottish Enlightenment. People like Adam Smith and Hume and all the great thinkers and philosophers of Scotland, including Sir James Fraser, the great mythologist and anthropologist at Cambridge, who came from Helensburgh near the Castle of the Muses, where I lived and taught for 7 years, and where I drafted the Interfaith Peace Treaty. So I'm the first guy on the planet, somebody's got to do it, right? To come up with a wording that I believe all these traditions could sign. It's intended for the illuminated ones, the intelligent ones within all traditions, to read it, realise it, recognise it and sign it. And already quite a few have. More help is done. Everyone that watches my videos should sign it and pass it and share it along. And it is the key to peace. You see, if we could get all the world's great faith traditions to sign it, from Shinto to Sikh to Jain to all the different kinds of Islam, all the different New Age religions, the humanist traditions, different forms of Judaism, different kinds of Taoism and Confucianism, and all the different schools of Christianity, Protestant, Catholic, Orthodox, Gnostic, all the rest of them, including all the different esoteric traditions of Freemasonry and the Osophies, Theosophy and Anthroposophy and so on. Well, they can all sign my treaty because it's designed, having spent several decades studying all this lot, as the common universal aspirant call for humanity to awaken. And I believe that intellectual leaders have a duty to sign this and promulgate it as the peace solution. We're not going to get peace on this planet till we make peace at this level, right? And that's what the Interfaith Peace Treaty is designed to do. So it's got its own website. Look it up, sign it, and pass it on. I once studied in London with a wonderful Jungian teacher. I've always been interested since discovering Jung in going into depth, and in the 1980s I was studying a course on advanced Jungian studies with a chap called Andrew Mouldy. And I remember at the last class he said, "Yes, Thomas, I worked it out. The solution is at the level of the angels." And I'd launched Philosophers of Peace, and I was, starting my work then as a young man. And I always mused on that. Anyway, I lost contact with him. I don't even know if he's still alive, but I think I now know what he meant, because I've come to an insight in the last little while. You see, angels work at this level, at the highest level. They're the transpersonal bands of existence. So when Muhammad, on his Miraj, his ascent from Temple Mount in Jerusalem up to heaven, he's accompanied by angels. And all the great Kabbalists in the Zohar and so on, they work with angels. And in the biblical text, what are angels? We've often had discussions, debates about this in classes I've been teaching and thinking aloud sessions with friends and colleagues. And I've realised the connection between the word angel and angle. You see, in Jainism, it said you can't see the absolute from all angles simultaneously at any one time. You know, if you made this into a 3D spherical shape, and I challenge designers to make me a model, maybe it would light up in different colours if you press the right button, you know. You can't see from all angles simultaneously at the same time. So what you therefore have is a particular angle or window onto the divinity or the absolute truth, if you want. So maybe the angels are like different orientations towards the absolute. The absolute at the centre of the sphere, to use the kind of Platonian metaphor, emanates all these avatarial traditions into human history, and we humans in embodiment, we gravitate either by cultural accident of birth or you know, attraction to particular lineages, and we encounter their different angels. So like Muhammad, when he was a young man, bless him, he was attracted to and gravitated to the lineage of Gabriel and the particular angels that inspired him. You know, and that was reinforced when he met Khadija, who was a kind of Gnostic Christian in her own right, who was also working within those angelic traditions. And that became what we call Islam, but that had that angle of perception towards the absolute. Now, a Druid, say, working in, you know, 4th century Ireland, would have had a whole different angle, a different understanding. So we know that St. Columba, for instance, 6th century owner from Ireland, he also worked with angels. He is known to have had, there's a place called the Hill of the Angels in Iona, which I've sat on. And the tradition is that Columba used to go out at night for a walk from the abbey, and he'd go and sit on the Angel Hill. And he always told his disciples and monks not to follow him. And then one monk, enterprising monk, followed him one night and saw him sitting up there on the hill and could see these strange lights in the sky. And he could see these angels descending and ascending in communion with Columba. He was up there chatting away with the angels, doing advanced prophetic work about the destiny of nations. And it was actually visible. It was like sort of quivering in the ether, so to speak. And the monk, you know, on the way back, he said to Columba, look, you know, I'm really sorry. I know you we're not supposed to have followed you, but I did. And I witnessed this extraordinary phenomenon, these lights, you know, what's all that about? Anyway, Columba explained, look, I was just having a communion with the angels. That's kind of part of my work. You see, Columba combined the advanced Druid skills of seership with Christianity. And that's kind of what we do, as I've explained in my Encyclopedia of Druid Studies, recently published. Anyway, Columba made the man swear to secrecy, didn't tell any other monks until after Columba's death. Because these skills are things that hitherto have been you know, kept as a preserve for an esoteric, you know, devotional team who are working at this level. I think it's time for that team to be strengthened. That's why I've gone public. That's why I do my talks. I think more of us need to intercommune more because the dark forces, the warlords, the myopic, you know, drug 'em and slay 'em lot, the kind of drug dealers on the planet, the demonic forces are very organised these days. They have huge amounts of money, they have huge amounts of resources. And so we need to get organised as well, which is why I've set up my various projects and run them, like the Truth and Reconciliation for the Middle East and so on. And also why I've launched the Interfaith Peace Treaty. It's also why I published this book on the universal saints and sages, because it's a wake-up call to mankind. These are the ones that are dead, but there are out there, the living ones. I gave a whole lecture course in Scotland on the living saints and sages, and each day of the year I look up. So I'm going to do that for today, which is the what is it? The 8th of March, because it's International Women's Day. Who are the saints and sages today? it's always great fun to look them up and see who we've got. And these were compiled over 10 years of study with students helping and so on. Okay, so for women today, we have Cristina Trivalzio, an Italian writer who lived from 1808 to 1871. I'll let you look her up. She's a great writer. We have for Freemasons Leopold von Boyen, 1771 to 1848. Part of the German Central European traditions of Freemasonry, which were very important at that time. The Emperor Joseph II was a Freemason, patron of Mozart, and Haydn was a Freemason, great classical musician at Esterházy Palace, which I've been to and now in Hungary, and many others. So, and Goethe, of course. I'm just reading a novel by Thomas Mann called Lottie in Weimar, which is about Goethe's great love, Lottie, who is in the sorrows of young Werther, and Goethe has this tragic, encounter. It was actually based on a historical love affair he had with Lottie, and the hero in the book, Werther, kills himself. Goethe didn't. He pulled himself together and went to Italy and got a life. But anyway, in the Thomas Mann's novel, Lottie goes to Weimar and meets, it's a wonderful novel, and it's full of all kinds of insights into the European mind. And Weimar was very important in the history of Freemasonry. And all that was trashed and destroyed, or attempted to be destroyed by the Nazis. They didn't succeed, thank God. Okay, then we come to our esoteric thinker, Stephanos of Alexandria, 610 to 641, a great philosopher, a mathematician, an astronomer, and an alchemist. Bless you. Stephanos of Alexandria, come on, living at the same time as Muhammad, from 610 to 641. I mean, what conversations Stephanos of Alexandria would have had, and would have heard about Muhammad. And I mean, what's lovely and I find so interesting is when the Muslims did go to Egypt and acquire its suzerainty, they were very careful to keep alive the wisdom traditions, and the wise ones among them recognized Idris as Hermes. Now, Idris had already been identified with Enoch, but Idris was now Hermes as well, the god of wisdom, Thoth, who was symbolized by the ibis. And so there's a tremendous Hermetic wisdom in Egypt, which was kept alive, not just in the West, in Europe and Britain, but also in the Islamic world. And somebody's written a whole book about the Hermetic wisdom traditions of Islam. As a peace thinker, what I'm saying is to get peace at that transpersonal level, right, in order to get peace at all these levels, we need to reactivate the Hermetic wisdom traditions inside Islam, inside Christianity, inside Judaism, and inside all the others. So, Stephanos, I'm sure you would be up for that. Now we come to our fourth Sikh guru, Ram Dass, 1534 to 1581. Whose name means God's servant, and Richard Alpert took the name Ram Dass when he was enlightened and went to India and so on. He used acid a bit and then didn't need it anymore because he found the actual stuff is circulating in the mind. Enlightenment pills are inside the brain. You just have to have the key to activate them, and that you can learn from a guru or a teacher or from self-reflection, study. A jnana yogi like me learns that from years and years of study. Anyway, this man, Ram Dass, bless you, he founded Amritsar, which I love. I've been to Amritsar several times. I've done the Sikh thing, going around the Golden Temple. I mean, I'm a Sikh, right? Because Sikhs means simply a student, a follower of truth in the universal, unknowable domains. And when I was talking about truth shortage the other day, I did my prayers from the Sikh scriptures, and lo and behold, there's Guru Nanak saying, what the world's suffering from is a shortage of truth. He got there 500, 600 years ago. So, yes, Ram Dass, thank you. We love you. Now we celebrate also for China, we celebrate Wu Yang Chi Wu, who lived from 1871 to 1943. These Chinese philosophers, again, quintessential, pure gold, alchemists of the intellect, who combined Taoism, Confucianism with their study of universal wisdom traditions. That brute Mao tried to kill them all off. Absolute, unbelievably disgraceful behaviour. If you read the Black Book of Communism, which you have to read, I'm sorry about this, you discover that what Mao did to the Chinese intellectuals, the philosophers, is he stripped them, humiliated them, tortured them. He made them kneel, walking on their knees on glass in front of cadres of brutes who would then beat them as they were going. These were scholars of great learning, Confucianists and Taoists. Mao was an absolute devil in human form. And poor old Ouyang Chiwu, he didn't at least live on to see Mao's illegal takeover of the Chinese people. Then we have Nestine Rose, a pioneer feminist in the USA for International Women's Day. And by the way, in my sort of attack on Mao, I'm not attacking the Chinese people. I love the Chinese people. They're some of the wisest people in the world. And I'm not condemning, there were some aspects of Mao that probably were rightly motivated. I'm still reading this in-depth biography, and I'm still assessing the karmic damage he's done. But and China obviously repudiated Mao a long time ago. But there's still some way to go, and there's still too many Maoist tendencies in the Chinese Communist Party today, in its suppression of freedom of speech in Hong Kong, in its bashing of the dissidents, in the way that it reacted when the coronavirus outbreak happened in Wuhan. What they do is they arrest the doctors for trying to discuss it. That's Maoism. That's what I mean by ignorance, which has seized illicit power over the state, which should be ruled by wisdom instead of ignorance. That's why Boris Johnson and Dominic Cummings, he's a Maoist essentially, who they're little petty bureaucrats whose ignorance is such and manic egotism is such that they think they have the right to say what is truth for everybody, anywhere in the whole of the UK, and won't hear any dissenting voices. Probably cannot hear. These people are so mono-focused, they cannot literally hear another point of view. And that's very dangerous to a state, that's when it collapses. When the geniuses among us decide, well, I don't want to be part of that project, Dominic Cummings, or Mao. And then their cruelty to the Tibetans is another thing that makes me very upset. I know Tibet wasn't perfect, it had its own feudalism, it had its problems, but it was a damn sight better than what happened with the horrendous atrocities that were inflicted during the Cultural Revolution on the Tibetans by these Chinese cadres all waving their little red books saying Mao Mao, Sorry. Then we have Sultan Walad, a great Sufi for Islam. We have Black Elk for the pagan traditions, 1863 to 1950. One of the great Native American Indian teachers who inspired me with his writings and work. Thank you, Black Elk. For culture, we have Paul Cézanne, a French painter, 1839 to 1906, who was obviously a genius. And I'm here in the home of French art, and they used to come here to La Creuse to paint the beautiful rivers and landscapes and sunsets. Then we have, for Hinduism, Charvaka, an Indian philosopher, who based his ideas on atomism and skepticism and was similar to Democritus and believed that there are these very fine things called atoms that everything's made of. We don't have his lost works. There was a sutra, the Bhartaspati Sutra, which has been lost. I'm a great believer in finding all the lost scriptures in all the cultures if we can make peace on the planet. Everyone signed the Interfaith Peace Treaty, get the armies to stand down, no more money on huge weapon expenditure, no more panic fear dominating society, and instead we spend the money on scholarship and archaeology and truth seeking and employment for everybody, environmental solutions and a peace economy. That's what everybody's talking about. Well, I've got the blueprint here, guys. That's what I'm doing as an intellectual, okay? and not just me, but the team, right? This is the team that I'm working with. Charvaka, thank you. And then we have, for Buddhists, we have a wonderful Indian man called Ambedkar, who lived from 1891 to 1956. He was an Indian jurist, politician and social reformer, connected to the modern Buddhist movement. He was independent India's first law minister, and he was the principal architect of the Constitution of India, which is still in place today, even though this man, Modi, I'm sure would try and burn it if he could. This man had doctorates from Columbia University, the LSE, and so on. And when I was working at the Gandhi Foundation in East London at Kingsley Hall for about 7 years as a volunteer with my office there, I met someone who came to me who'd been his private secretary, Ambedkar's private secretary. And he came to me and gave me some books that Ambedkar had written, including sort of manuscripts and stuff. And he told me about Ambedkar. He was a very modest man. He became a Buddhist because he felt Buddha's Dharma was really spot on when it comes to truth seeking. And that although Hinduism's lovely and we all love, the gopis and Krishna and all that, there's a tendency in it to lose track of the ethics, and it can become a sort of tribal nationalist mentality, which is of course what Modi has done skillfully, whipping it up with the BJP. And that's what killed Gandhi, whereas Ambedkar was a friend of Gandhi and believed in that secular constitution, by which the Indians mean not anti-religiosity, but the fullness of religiosity. What Indian secularism is about is working with the full range, all human societies and experiences, and all the different insights of spirituality. And Buddha is part of that, and so are all the others on the team. So anyway, Ambedkar, we salute you today. Thank you. Then we come to our Christians, and we have Felix of Dunwich, John of God, Senan, and Duthak. And these are all the saints of today, the 8th of March. And I'll just share one of them, because they're all amazing, but to read them all will take all day. John of God, who is the founder of the Brothers Hospitallers, 1495 to 1550, born in Montemor, Il Novo, in Portugal, and he became a soldier, a chevalier, fought for Spain against the French and the Turks, notably in Hungary, and went through a sort of secular time. Then he went back to normal life, became a shepherd in Andalusia, and then at the age of 40 converted to a life of dedication to the service of God and compassion to the poor. And he became a peddler. He sold sacred books in Gibraltar, opened a shop in Granada, gave away his stock of books, and met John of Avila. And he rented a house in Granada, and he took to a life of wandering, spiritual advice giving to people, really. And he's the patron saint of booksellers and printers, and hospitals. So, yeah. I love you, John of God, thank you. He died in 1550. We also have today, for Protestant Christians, because my dictionary includes both, Coleridge, the great poet, who was an Anglican and a mystic and a philosopher. He studied Kantian and German philosophy and introduced it into England, really. My daughter's doing a PhD and looking at Coleridge, among others. A great man, a great poet, and a great explorer. He was always working on an unfinishable work, the great work. It was never finished. Maybe my daughter can comment on it and do a commentary on it one day and finish it. That would be nice. So look, we give thanks to all these saints and sages today. And that's my little daily practice, that I run through the list. They're my line managers, so to speak. Keep me on the track. And I recommend that you get the book, look at them, study them. These are our line managers as a planet. If we're trying to seriously get peace between all these faiths, we need to study each individual who's contributed to the general overall map, and then reawaken their wisdom for this era and this age. It's important we don't let it die, let it drop, so to speak. We have to keep at it. I want to finish with two things. First is the reading from the second Sunday in Lent. This is the Christian tradition of the Anglican Church from the Book of Common Prayer. And in churches throughout the Anglican world, in Oxford, Cambridge, all the places I know and love well, this prayer will have been said, particularly in the cathedrals and others. And this is called the Collect. Today is the second Sunday in Lent, as we come up to Easter. Almighty God, who seest that we have no power of ourselves to help ourselves, keep us both outwardly in our bodies and inwardly in our souls, that we may be defended from all adversities, which may happen to the body, and from all evil thoughts, which may assault and hurt the soul. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. It's very, very simple, short and sweet, and it's so important for this time because it's two things. One, protecting our bodies from illness, and that's the coronavirus. I pray that this collect resonates, throughout the world and protects us all from the virus and empowers our scientists to work on a cure. Secondly, it's about protecting our souls from evil thoughts, and that's for people that are suffering depression, mental illness, anger, all the turmoil of a turbulent life. I know people that have, issues, and the collect is saying, look, there is a place where you can go to be cleansed and purified. The place that Christ took Mary Magdalene, and that all people who suffer from mental illness can go to. And that is a place of perfect peace and purity. So let us give thanks for the Book of Common Prayer. And finally, I'm going to finish with my quote from the Dhammapada, which is what I'm working on, my commentary on the Dhammapada, one of the greatest of Buddhist scriptures, perhaps the greatest, because it's the most foundational. It was already aged by the time of Asoka, who inspired, by the way, Ambedkar, and he put Ashoka's pillar on the symbol of India, modern India, and the Indian flag, it's there, the 3 lions. So the Dhammapada is teachings given by the Buddha. And I'm just going to quote from chapter 6, the wise one, verse 79. And I'll close with this. He who drinks of the waters of truth, he rests in joy with mind serene. The wise find their delight in the Dharma, in the truth revealed by the great ones. It's like an ocean of depth and meaning, this. And in my commentary I'm explaining in great detail what is meant by that. But it's a sort of universal symbolism. Drinking of the waters of truth, you get that in the Psalms, you get that in all the holy scriptures of other faiths. And the resting in joy with mind serene, that's the purification of consciousness that meditation teaches. If you practice daily meditation for 40 years, as I've done, you reach the capacity of a certain serenity. And that's why Buddha's teachings are so important. They were the first that really, awakened my soul to realise my path in this incarnation is to, develop the onward flowing stream of collective enlightenment for the planet, and peace, therefore. And then the wise find their delight in the Dharma. Well, that's exactly like the quote from the Zohar that I was reading out recently in another context, where it says in the Zohar that the wise should spend their time in Torah study. It's the same, because the Dharma is the Torah. The study, if you're a Buddhist, of the Dharma, and the study of the Torah if you're Jewish or Christian or whatever, it's all one Torah. When you go underneath this lot, you find they're all interconnected to a common light. Let's say if you do a spherical 3D model of this, then at the heart of the whole lot is a light emanating into each lineage, so to speak. And I recommend, I want a sculpture made of this, please. And yes, and then finally, in the truth revealed by the great ones. Well, that's the people behind all these different boxes. You know, that's Kant, Pythagoras, Buddha, Plato, Mahavira, Buddha, Shankara, you know, and all the other great teachers of mankind. Bless them. So there we are. That's my little offering for today. This is my strategy to clean up the world's coronavirus outbreak and to solve the problem of prophetic shortage, and to open the hidden resources, treasures of the world. There's no shortage, guys. This is better news than an oil discovery. If I'd announced here I've just discovered 33 million billion trillion barrels of oil, you know, there would be a great rejoicing on the planet. This is much more important. I've just discovered the trillion infinite supply of prophetic intelligence. That can be for everyone on the planet. There's enough to go around. There's no shortage, no scarcity, no competition needed, and therefore no wars needed. So there we are. That's my strategy for world peace and enlightenment, and I'll see you on the other side. Thank you so much. I'm going to finish with my little tantric castanets, which I love. Thank you.